Coming up next, Sitting at 30 takes you downtown for the weekly luncheon meeting of the City Club of Portland. Live weekly coverage of City Club is made possible in part by TCI and is produced through the facilities of Portland Cable Access. Now we join the City Club for this week's program.
Multnomah County to discuss with us the 21st century politics and renewing our faith in Oregon government. As new members, we have David Wind, Vice President of U.S. Bank, Richard Glassman, Relationship Manager, U.S. Bank, and David Maslick, Relationship Manager of U.S. Bank. Gentlemen, we're pleased to have you on board. Thank you. On March the 3rd, join us as we take a look at how to improve our public schools with Katie Haycock, Executive Director of the National Education Trust in Washington, D.C. This program is co-sponsored by the Portland Public Schools Foundation. It'll be in the Grand Room, Ballroom of the Hilton Hotel. Please note the change in location. On March 3rd, we'll also provide you with an opportunity to hear about and sign up to a couple of hours visiting one of our Portland schools during the week of April the 24th to 28th. This is part of a back-to-school week sponsored by the statewide Organization for Schools. This effort will provide communities statewide opportunity to reconnect with their school system. Our membership campaign continues. It's well underway. We're attempting to recruit 100 new members during the recruiting time from February 4th to March 31st. There are application forms on the back table. As most of you know, the City Club in the state of Oregon lost one of its finest citizens Tuesday when Bud Forrester passed away. Bud was a regular attender at these Friday forums. He will be sorely missed here and throughout the state, where he so generously gave of his time and talent. On a personal note, particularly when I was port director and Bud was in Astoria, we had a lot of conflicting views about the future of ports, but Bud always was a gentleman and thoughtful and very fair, I thought, in the way he handled the situation. Our board host today is Arnold Kogan, member of the Board of Governors and managing partner for Kogan, Owens & Kogan. He will ask the first question of our speaker. Following that, we will open up questions to members, City Club members in the audience. Broadcast of our City Club programs this quarter is made possible in part by the corporate giving of Barney & Worth, Kaiser Permanente Health Systems, and Wells Fargo Bank. We're very grateful for their support. In the last 50 years, much of the unincorporated Multnomah County area has urbanized. In the process, large areas have been annexed, principally to Portland and to Gresham. The role of the county needed to change. For the last decade, Bev Stein has had a major role in this transition. Working with the board, she's placed major emphasis on children and families, public safety, and the improvement of how government has been run. Incidentally, a county government that has a budget of over $900 million. She's been characterized as energetic, optimistic, and smart. She was selected to fill the unexpired term of the chair on the death of Gladys McCoy and re-elected twice since then. The position is the Chief Administrative Officer for the county. In the late 80s and early 90s, she served in the Oregon House of Representatives for 3 terms. She's a graduate of the University of California at Berkeley in urban studies with a law degree from the University of Wisconsin. Bev is extensively involved in Multnomah County and in Oregon in a wide range of programs promoting the state. Bev, we look forward to your comments on the 21st century, with or without Bill Sizemore.
Thank you. It really is a great honor to be speaking at the City Club once again. I always enjoy this opportunity. It also always makes me very nervous because you get to speak in front of people that really you think have a lot to do with what the future is going to be about and who are very committed to the future of our community. So I always feel it's important to try hard to do a good job. So I've nervously been working on my speech for the last few days. The title of my speech is 21st Century Politics, which perhaps is a bit brash, given we've only got 2 months under our belt in this new century. However, January and February, a political retrospective, just didn't sound like a good title to me. So let's start, though, with the dilemma of what to think about our current conditions. Should we be elated or depressed? Or to borrow from Dickens, is this the best of times or is this the worst of times? On a national level, we are experiencing one of the longest stretches of economic expansion in history. The stock market passed Pluto this year. While there are still daily reports of war and terrorism around the globe, we have also seen progress and peace come in some of the most contentious areas of the world. Mutually assured destruction is a doctrine now more common among celebrity divorce lawyers than nuclear superpowers. And here in Oregon, our economy is doing very well, thank you. Unemployment is low, and we still enjoy one of the most beautiful corners of the world. I spent a week in southeastern Oregon last September. And if you haven't been there, or if you haven't been there recently, go and be reminded of the incredible natural treasures that we have in our stewardship in this state. So with all these reasons for optimism, why are so many of us depressed about our political future? To try to answer this question, I go back to my first memories of Oregon politics. Those of us involved in a civic life at that time, 25 years ago, Oregon was a special place, a place where unprecedented public policy achievements could take shape and take root. There was a real sense of possibility. During the 1970s alone, my first decade in the region, we saw the passage of the Bottle Bill, the realization of the downtown plan for Portland, the defeat of the Mount Hood Freeway, the replacement of a riverfront highway with premier strip of public parkland, piers, and shops, and the implementation of a radical concept that we still need to protect, the urban growth boundary. It felt like anything could be achieved with hard work and good organizing. That spirit led to risk-taking, to novel bipartisan coalitions, and most importantly, to a sense that we could shape Oregon. It felt really great. But it is time to admit that these accomplishments are now a quarter of a century old. We're running on those fumes of this past spirit, and I think we need to face facts. Telling what is true and honest is the best start for change. That widespread sense of involvement and that shared stake in a common future has really dissipated. And Oregon's future, its political future, is imperiled by cynicism, an eroding civic culture, and a lack of bipartisan leadership. In the midst of unprecedented economic growth, we have an uneasy sense that things are falling apart. We know in our hearts we are doing precious little to ensure that the educational, infrastructure, and community needs of the future are being met. And despite skyrocketing 401ks and rising numbers of high-tech millionaires, a tremendous number of people feel acute economic insecurity. And for good cause. The disparity between the rich and everyone else is becoming a very large and deep gulf. In Oregon, the wealthiest 20% of us enjoyed a 38% increase in real wages between 1990 and the year 2000, while the bottom 20% are trying to get by on nearly a 14% decrease in their real wages. Even the relationship between people and how they make their living is changing. Job security, pensions, and health benefits are far more unstable than they used to be. We are working harder and longer to keep pace with the needs of our families, more often than not, with both parents working or a single parent setting. The bitter irony here is that by providing for our families, we also rob our families of some of our best energies. In fact, one of America's top 5 worries is that children are getting less time with caring adults. Without affordable, adequate child care or after-school care, a generation of children is left to its own devices, with as much formative input from Nintendo as from any other source. I don't think any of us believe that Pokemon is the best vehicle to transmit our cultural values. I learned to say Pokemon from a 3-year-old. The lack of time and the intense competition for our attention is just as corrosive to our civic culture as it is to our families. When people spend less time getting involved in government and or community groups, they become more convinced that government is irrelevant to their lives. This, in turn, fuels voter apathy and cynicism. Look at the statistics on voter participation. Voter turnout has been dropping like a rock, especially among the young. Only 9% of registered 18 to 34-year-olds voted in the primary election in May of '98 in Oregon. In many cases, which is even worse in some ways, the young people made an affirmative choice not to vote in a system that they felt had little connection to their lives. A great many voters simply don't trust government to address the problems they see around them and feel in their daily lives. They feel isolated, they feel unvalued by a system in which the needs of real people appear to be discounted or dismissed by the narrow agendas of moneyed interest and unprincipled politicians. Our political mission for the beginning of this century must be no less than resurrecting the idea of government of, by, and for the people, and to reestablish both the relevancy and the reward of direct involvement in democracy. A tall order. And frankly, given what we expect to see on the ballot this November, it will be quite an accomplishment just to stop some truly terrible things from happening. One example is the impending threat posed by the federal income tax deductibility initiative that Bill Sizemore has sponsored. This measure will cut an estimated $1.6 billion, that's billion, from public services for the 2001-2003 biennium. And no service will be hurt more than public schools, the single greatest predictor of our future success as a society. Roughly 43% of the state's general fund revenues goes to Oregon's K-12 schools. And it's quite reasonable to believe, as Portland Public Schools financial chief Jim Scherzinger has said, that our schools would be forced to shut down as early as May next year, or this year, to absorb the cuts required by the first year. And our reward for devastating schools, health care, and public safety? Tax cuts for Oregon's wealthiest. According to the Legislative Revenue Office, a family of 4 making $40,000 a year would receive a cut of about $20 from this measure, while a family of 4 making $500,000 would receive a tax cut of $14,400. Clearly, when it comes to tax reform, one Sizemore does not fit all. And yet, based on the ballot title alone, this measure is likely to pass unless we put together a well-funded, broad-based campaign involving leaders from both major parties, community activists, business people, unions, and clergy. And this measure is not the only dagger being aimed at the heart of Oregon's government. Our November ballot will also contain some very real threats to land use planning, environmental protection, human rights, and other values that I hold dear, and I believe you do too. With all these problems, it's easy to see why there is a doubt about our ability to act as a community, to do what is necessary to secure our long-term future, and to regain the momentum towards the Oregon we all hold dear in our hearts. Sometimes when I hear the doomsayers, it reminds me of what Woody Allen once said. More than any time in history, mankind faces a crossroads. One path leads to despair and utter hopelessness, the other to total extinction. Let us pray we have the wisdom to choose correctly. Now, I don't think we are reduced to a choice between hopelessness and extinction. We'll leave that for the November elections. I believe we can not only repel these attacks in our future, but we can begin to rebuild the civic culture that we were once so proud of to be part of. To do that, however, we have to make a decision to leave our doubts and hopelessness behind and address the growing alienation and animosity that people feel towards government and its leaders. One of the most important things I've observed in the last 30 years as an activist, both inside and outside government, is that a functional civil culture does not automatically arise from sweeping, uplifting rhetoric. Yes, vision and passion in articulating that vision is very important. But even more important is what happens where the governmental rubber meets the road, implementing ideas and making things work. When the day-to-day operation of government makes sense to people and shows results that match their values and concerns, we reinforce a sense of common purpose and possibility. As the CEO of Multnomah County, I've had to confront all the problems that come with serving what one journalist called the neediest and the naughtiest. We encompass every element of the public safety system. We are one of the state's largest direct providers of health care. We run the largest library system in Oregon and have taken a direct role in the success of our public schools through direct funding and services to support children and families. Stretching into the Columbia Gorge to the Bonneville Dam, we even have our own version of the urban-rural split as we work to provide environmental protection, land use planning, and transportation management in the unincorporated portions of the county. We need examples of things that work. And let me tell you about some things that have been working, that we have been working on in Multnomah County that do work. Statistics show that the juvenile crime rate is at its highest between the hours of 3 and 6 p.m. Sexual and drug activity among teens also peaked during this time period. Yet we maintain school hours and school years based on a bygone era. It's a basic fact of life now that too many children are left unsupervised after school while their parents work. We have a mismatch. Mary Poppins is not going to drop out of the sky with tea and cookies for these children. Clearly, we need to meet the needs of these families with an approach that makes sense in our current world for working families. That's exactly what we started with Sun Schools, Schools Uniting Neighborhoods. School buildings. $500 million worth of public infrastructure in Portland public schools alone are sitting empty while parents, children, and neighbors need them most. Why not put them to good use for after-school learning, recreation, and community gathering? This is common sense, but as of yet, this model is not common in our communities. Multnomah County, with the cities of Portland and Gresham, the state of Oregon, the Multnomah County School Districts, United Way, private funders, and interested citizens, is realizing this common sense idea in neighborhoods. Commissioner Jim Francisconi and I announced the selection of 8 schools across the county that will stay open after the final bell as Sun Schools, where tutoring, recreation, adult and senior classes, health services, and neighborhood meetings will take place. A federal grant will allow us to create 4 more Sun Schools over the next year. Schools are becoming co-owned by the community with a Sun coordinator and the school principal working together to make the school a place that welcomes neighbors along with parents and children. Effective coordination among the local jurisdictions, collaboration between public and private funders, and dedicated grassroots community involvement have all contributed to this model's success. This idea has the potential to reshape the way we think about education, community building, and the delivery of community services. Most important, it provides citizens tangible evidence that government can indeed do something smart to make a difference about things that matter in their lives. Confidence in government is fostered when people come together in a school and get involved in each other's lives. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, the poorest in our society are not benefiting from the current boom in the economy and, in fact, are losing ground. My political generation has learned that it's simply not possible to spend poverty away. A safety net is essential, but poverty is more than not having money to pay for rent and food. It's the lack of job skills, the lack of education and opportunity. And despite recent reforms, our welfare model of the last 30 years does not address this particular systemic problem. The Individual Development Account, or IDA, is an approach that can. An IDA is a true investment partnership. If a low-income person saves money, the community or government will match each dollar saved 2 to 1. These savings can then be used for education, job training, buying a first home, or starting a business. I first proposed the idea of IDAs during my second session in the legislature in 1991. The idea appealed to both Democrats and Republicans, but it didn't get implemented at that time. Now, 3 years ago, the Corporation for Enterprise Development funded 13 demonstrations around the country, including one in East Multnomah County at Human Solutions, a nonprofit agency. They establish accounts, find eligible people, and advise account holders about the best use of their assets. Let me give you a couple of examples. Mara Winstar, who was recently profiled in the Oregonian, has overcome health problems and homelessness by starting a home greeting card design business with the help of an IDA through Human Solutions. Latimia Clayton bought a house in Gresham to share with her son and younger brother after saving for 3 years with an IDA. The financial benefits for low-income people are certainly important, but one of the side benefits may be more so. The sense of self-esteem and hope that comes from having dollars in the bank and a sense of future possibilities. Now a coalition of local nonprofits is using federal grant money and matching funds from Portland and Multnomah County to make up to 200 additional individual development accounts available locally. Last legislative session, working with Representative Jeff Merkley and Oregon Housing and Community Services Director Bob Repine, a Republican from Grants Pass I know from my days in the legislature, we successfully passed legislation offering tax credits to people who contribute to the IDAs of low-income people. I believe we are the first in the nation to offer such credits, and I'll be marketing them to you soon. Instead of throwing money at a problem, we are making an investment, and the return is big. A county report shows that over a 10-year period, for every dollar invested in a housing and education individual development accounts, we will see a minimum return on this investment of $3.40. This, while people learn to save, become self-sufficient, and give back to the community with their productivity and a sense of hope for the future. What is the central cause of ill will towards government? We probably all have the one we could put out there first. But what about the idea that the public sector is awash in money that it carelessly and heedlessly wastes? When I first came to the county, I was determined to show the government could run as efficiently as the best private sector organizations. And last December, an independent assessment of Multnomah County's management techniques confirmed that we have made this happen. Multnomah County, judged alongside both private and public sector organizations in the state, won the Oregon Quality Award. We are only the third government organization to win this award, and I'm proud to report we are by far the largest organization, public or private, to ever win the award. Yes. A lot of county employees in the audience. How did we do this? We learned the right lessons from the private sector and put them to work. Now, I want to be careful here and avoid the cliche, run government like a business. Government is not a business. It is not supposed to be a business. It's not supposed to turn a profit. But there are some business principles we have seized on the county with some terrific results. We remember who the customers are and treat them like we value their support. We remember the taxpayers have a right to expect maximum value from their investments. We realize the world is a changing place, and those who don't innovate are left in the dust. And we recognize that our employees are our most valuable assets, and we invest in them with training, confidence, and appreciation. Successes from this program include increasing the number of immunized 2-year-olds at the county's health clinics from 52% to 92%, reducing the wait time to hear from an advice nurse from 3 hours to 3 minutes, and accruing more than $2 million in savings in a 3-year period. These are real results that real people understand. We are getting more bang for the tax buck, and it's helping to increase government's credibility. As county CEO, I have to implement ideas, not just dream them up and vote on them. As a result, I appreciate what it really takes to bring a simple idea, like keeping schools open for community use during afternoons, or using private sector techniques to improve public sector management and make it a reality. It sounds easy, but I assure you that the many hardworking people involved in making these projects successful in Multnomah County will tell you differently. And we have learned a lot, and we're still learning. Here are some essential principles, however, about how I think government and its partners must operate. First, public resources need to be carefully and tightly managed. In an era of government bashing, the managers of public tax dollars must demonstrate prudent use of these dollars. One reason the Sun School model is so compelling is because it takes advantage of existing, underutilized public space. Taxpayers have paid to build these wonderful buildings in their neighborhoods. We are now delivering full value for that investment. Second, solutions must be taken to scale. This means that when you do something, you have to do enough of it to actually make a difference. All too often, good ideas and innovations are left by the wayside because they were not given the time or resources to work. I've said it before, I'm too old for pilot projects. And nibbling around the edges of a problem doesn't help, and it really annoys the public. Think about it. What if we took Sun schools to scale around the state? For about $2.50 a day per student, we could replicate this model and make a dramatic impact in the education of our young people and improve the health of our communities at the same time. What if we took the concept of the individual development account to scale? We could give every Oregon child an account at birth and link tax incentives for businesses to making deposits of cash or stock into a children's individual development account. The third principle is that anything important can't be done alone. The days of heroic individual feats of public service are behind us. Individuals can provide leadership and need to, but it's actually getting things done takes skillful and persistent partnering. One of the most fruitful partnerships we've forged in the county is our Strategic Investment Program agreement with LSI Logic and the City of Gresham. Now, I didn't support this deal when it was proposed, but as it went forward, I was determined to maximize the benefits that could be negotiated for the public. And I'm pleased to report that this partnership has been a model for true public-private cooperation, and to date has delivered 374 units of affordable housing, 485 living wage jobs, ongoing job training, and environmental stewardship that no single entity could have created. Building on the value of partnerships, the fourth principle is that the community must be involved in developing solutions early on and then be involved in implementing them. I believe regular people with good information should be entrusted to make decisions that impact them. I think we have to come to understand that government alone cannot, will not, and should not solve all our problems. The county, like most governments, has always held traditional public hearings to seek public input on annual budgets. 2 years ago, a lack of interest by citizens got us thinking that this could be handled much better. We had about 2 people at one of our hearings. We decided that rather than asking people to come to our hearings, we would ask our caring communities, which are community coalitions in our high school catchment areas, to host their own meetings. We promised to attend and participate and get back to them with feedback. The result has been the addition of new energy and excitement to a process that is essential to determining how resources and services get distributed in these communities. And believe me, the meetings are far more fun than anything we've ever coordinated. One meeting started with Samoan dancing. Another had 200 people who came, and the entire meeting was conducted in Spanish. One was hosted by several Madison High School classes who made input into the county budget a class project. We took government to where people are and sought partnership instead of control, a novel but powerful idea. There is no reason that what we have accomplished in Multnomah County cannot be accomplished elsewhere. Innovation, accountability, and making what government does relevant to those from whom we ask support are not partisan issues, they're just common sense. Even with my gene for optimism that I talk about, I can get discouraged when I think about the upcoming ballot measures that damage education and other state and local services, that would handcuff our efforts to protect the environment, that would discriminate against gay men and lesbians, and make it hard for union members to work together. Then throw in traffic. Did you come up here on Taylor Street by any chance? The stresses of growth, conflicts between the urban and rural areas, hunger amidst plenty, 1 in 7 women experiencing domestic violence. I could go on for a long time. These are issues I deal with every day on my job. We wouldn't be human if we didn't get discouraged at times, but I never become hopeless. I know we can tackle our challenges, protect and improve the quality of life that we love in Oregon, and feel confident our children will have an opportunity to be hopeful and happy and succeed. I know this because, like many in this room, I have now lived long enough to see changes happen that I really couldn't have imagined. We can learn from our children, too. Here's a quote from a Hillsborough 6th grader who was asked about what the future will bring. "If we keep going at this rate, anything's possible." It should be our motto, I think. When I was a young girl, and even into my college years, I felt like I didn't fit in. I was the smart girl. You know who they were. And it felt like there was something wrong with that. We were the nerds. In the early 70s, I got involved with the women's movement, and I realized there was nothing wrong with who I was. I dedicated myself to bringing the message of independence and equality to women. It led me to overcome my fear of public speaking, and it led me to law school. Today, the girls I know in my volunteer work with Girl Scout Troop 60 live in an entirely different world. They play sports I wasn't even allowed to try. They see women as community leaders, and they see women in elected office, like myself, and there's 4 very smart women I serve with on the county commission, and I want to note that. I'm pleased that Serena Cruz and Sharon Kelly and Diane Lynn are here with me today to appreciate that applause for them, because they truly are a group of smart women. And I also want to acknowledge that Sue Cameron, another smart woman who's on the Tillamook County Commission, is also here. I would have never dreamed as a child that I would become an elected leader. The world has changed fundamentally, and I believe it can continue to do so. Let me offer another example. When I was young, people threw trash out their car windows. Can you believe that? And they threw newspapers and tin cans and bottles in their garbage can. Think about that. Today we take for granted that these things should be recycled, and our children would be appalled if we threw trash out the window of our cars. The world has changed fundamentally, and I believe it will continue to do so. I've been talking on a personal level about some of the amazing changes we have seen in our lifetime. From a time when traveling to the next town was an effort, we can now travel around the world and into space at the click of a mouse. From a time when your possibilities as a person were limited by the accident of your birth, we now believe in the limitless potential of every person, regardless of their gender, their race, or their origin. From an economy bound by what the ground could offer, we are now limited only by what the mind can conceive. Here in Oregon, we have made great progress that we should be incredibly proud of. We led the nation with the bottle bill. We have an internationally known land use planning system that protects the coast and keeps our cities from endless expansion. Despite serious threats to our education system, we can be proud that Portland is the only urban area where 90% of kids attend public schools. Through the Oregon Health Plan, we have extended health coverage to thousands of people without health care. We have repeatedly repelled attacks aimed at gay and lesbian neighbors. But those of us who share a deep love for the land and people of Oregon have a lot to do together to preserve and keep what is special here. This is still a state with the boldness to strike out on its own and the vision to lead a nation. We must reclaim the mantle of leadership to reach beyond the confines of this particular political moment. Politics is not disreputable. It is only disreputable people who make it seem that way. We must not cede political ground to those who would not build a better future. We must remember this is our fight, and we must extend ourselves for the common good. At the end of the day, we will prevail. Our greatest days are before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev, for that very fine speech. And as the having the honor of the first question, I wanted to probe your use of the word CEO. I've heard you use that in other speeches. And as the CEO of the county, are you satisfied that you and your colleagues have all of the powers and the tools that you need to truly manage the county in the way that you think it should be? And if you don't have all those powers and tools, what are some of the ones that you'd like to have that maybe will make the subject of a future City Club research project?
I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to get to here. Are we talking about term limits? Is that one of them? No. Okay, I'll just answer it. In terms of the tools that we need, actually, I think we have most of the tools we need. I mean, I would have to say we need to defeat the Sizemore measure. We're not going to have the tools we need because no matter how efficient and effective you are, if you don't have a basic amount of money to run the system, you're just not going to be able to run a good system in the things we need to do. So defeating the Sizemore measure is probably the number one tool I would like to have in our arsenal as we move forward. But we have tremendously skilled and committed employees, which is probably the most important thing we have. We have excellent leadership at the top of the county. So I think it's only our own work that we need to do, and the work that I described in my speech, which is to work together to help reclaim confidence in government.
Matteo Luccio, City Club member, Multnomah County employee, and editor of the magazine Oregon's Future. In the last couple of months, we've now heard here at the City Club the state of the state from John Kitzhaber, the state of the region from Mike Burton, the state of the city from Vera Katz, and now your talk about the county. And there's three themes that run through these four talks. Number one, our impressive list of achievements. You're all familiar with the list. Number two, how it's been a while since we've added to that list, and we cannot take anything for granted or sleep on our laurels. And number three, the threat from Sizemore, and his forces and cohorts. So my question is, where and when and how did we get bogged down? Why does Sizemore and all he represents have the support he does have, and what went wrong, and where do we get bogged down?
I think that's probably a very complicated question because there's a lot of factors that contribute to it. Sort of on the largest scale, things have really dramatically changed. Our economy is no longer something we totally control in Oregon. We have an international economy, so there's a sense that we can't control our own lives. That's why the whole work around the World Trade Organization is so important, because that would take more tools out of our hands in terms of how we can shape our own economy. So I think people feel that their connection to the things that make things happen with the economy is reduced. I think that I hate to pin it all on television, but there is a factor, I think, about people growing up, watching television, having expectations that can't be met. I read an interesting article where it's pointed out that people used to compare themselves to the people that live next door to them. Now they compare themselves to people who have fancy apartments and are incredibly thin and have wonderful clothes on TV. And the sense of, well, I can never be that. So the sense of where you're trying to get. And another thing, I think we're struggling with looking for meaning in our lives. I think there's a sense that we're adrift and trying to figure out what that meaning is. And I think that meaning can be the coming together for common purpose. But people have kind of lost that as an anchor in their communities.
Len Fraser, club member, a related question. How can we help the schools prepare our students to become citizens who don't fall for Mr. Sizemore and other demagogues? 2, do schools who sponsor commercial products for money produce students who may become cynics or sheep? Same question, really.
Well, I'll start with the first one about how can we improve citizenship. One of the things we can do is teach about local government and state government in schools. There are no classes. You don't learn about it. The Madison High School students that did our county budget had not a clue what the county did. Now they know a lot. They went and investigated our library, they did this and that. We have a program at the county that I'm hoping that other governments will pick on as a school-to-career effort. And Jim Harper, who's coordinating that, is here. We have decided that we're going to be a work site for as many high school students and younger who want to come and have an experience working with our nurses, our librarians, our program managers, our people who work in transportation. And that's going to be, I think, one of the best things we could possibly do to actually grow up a new group of young people who have experience with government and have actually touched it. I've had interns who come into my office who came with either a negative view of government or kind of neutral and didn't know anything. And they left wanting to have careers in government. And that's when I figured out, oh, this might be a good tactic. So we want to do that. In terms of commercialization, I don't know that that's going to be the major thing that's going to make kids into sheep. I think that good teachers, small classes, and adequately funded schools is probably the most important thing we could focus on. Let's vote for the local option, right?
Ray Polani, a City Club member. We are lamenting loss of dollars for schools, for the poor, for the environment, for housing, and our friend Sizemore is probably going to make it worse if we listen to him. But what would you think of voting for a greatly increased gasoline excise tax devoted to general fund uses? It's a radical idea for the U.S., but it's commonplace all over Europe. Very high gasoline taxes going in the general fund, not being evaded, but being paid, collected at the pump, and then put in the general fund to satisfy all needs, not only roads, but everything that's needed. General fund, excise tax, that's what it is. What do you think of it?
Well, I think we're going to have a hard enough time passing keeping the gas tax that the legislature passed just to do roads. I've always been interested in expanding and opening up the gas tax. I voted over and over again to use the gas tax for roads and for whatever else anybody put on there. I thought you should open it up. It seemed crazy to me to just have it for that. But I'd want to be careful about making that a major funding source for the general fund because it's not a progressive tax. But certainly would like to open it up. But right now, it seems like we're going the other direction. We can't even get it passed to do things, just roads, when we should be using it for public transportation. So it's not what I think. It's what I think is possible right now, I think.
Hi, Bev.
Hi, Jay.
Jay Bloom, City Club member, and I want to thank you for your enthusiasm and passion. You remind me of the quote, the pessimist may be right in the long run, but the optimist has more fun on the journey.
Right. I'm having a great time.
I'm also going to shock you by not asking you a question about children. But the question I do have for you is you've had much success in trying to bring the different parts of government together, state, county, city, schools, and even nonprofits. What do you think are the key ingredients for strengthening those initiatives?
I think it's acknowledging that kind of partnering really, as you pointed out yesterday in meeting around, I think that kind of partnering takes time and it takes investment. That what it's about is relationships. When I think about what we need to do, it always comes down to relationship, relationship, relationship. And so it's building those relationships and really getting to know each other, really listening to each other so that then when we get down to the hard work, when the hard parts come, we can get over them. But not to undercut that it takes some investment to make those things happen. On the other hand, if we don't make those investments, I don't think we can make very much happen. The scale I want to make change, the only possible way is through collaboration of many, many different people coming together and institutions.
Steve Novick, City Club member. Chair Stein, you've been mentioned as a possible candidate for governor. But as you pointed out, if Bill Sizemore's windfall for the wealthy passes, there won't be a state left worth governing. Now, I'm sure that all the possible candidates will denounce Sizemore's measure, but talk is cheap. Campaigns cost money. You and Phil Kiesling have each raised a little bit of money to help fight Sizemore's measure already. Jack Roberts has asked to help raise money and has refused. Would you agree that anybody who can't raise at least $50,000 to defeat Sizemore's measure doesn't deserve to be governor?
This is a bit of a setup because I'm working on a committee with him to work on this. And one thing, we got together last week and said, okay, what can we do now? We're really worried about this. So we've all committed to identifying 50 community leaders and business people who say that they will oppose this measure, and then we can go with the governor, hopefully, and raise money from those folks. And I started making my calls yesterday, Steve, and I have 5 people.
Bev, I'm Peter Paulson, City Club member. I think we're all blessed to have you as our CEO. I'm sure you don't get these bonuses that CEOs get in New York.
I'd like that golden parachute.
But I am concerned still about the older women in this country that I think there's still over 12% who are living in poverty. But I think primarily of some of these older people who are low income, and then the government steps in through the Area Agency on Aging and says, well, we will provide you in-home care. And the care that's provided is under the title client-provided care. That is, a client is the employer of the person employed. Well, a lot of my older friends who live alone just can't go out in the field and employ such people. In the first place, they are some of America's forgotten worker. They only get a wage through the government program. They don't have any benefits whatever. And the turnover is great. This is a problem, I think, as you know, is a problem of the whole nation, of all our states, that these forgotten workers are asked to do heavy work, asked to do 24-hour care, are asked to do the work that you and I would find it most difficult to do, and yet they can hold on to the job. They have to go to Target and do companies like that to earn a living wage. What is the county planning to do to help us make others aware of this plight?
Well, there's actually a ballot measure that we can support, which is, there aren't a lot of them out there this year, but it's a ballot measure that's being circulated to create an organization of home care workers so that those home care workers can negotiate as a union with the state to get better wages and working conditions and benefits. I think it is very important that we pay attention to that measure, which I think will be on the ballot. The other thing is we've set up a living wage task force force to look at, and this is just for the county, we don't pay for those workers, but hopefully it would expand. And we're first looking to get a handle on the information about what are the wages being paid in the nonprofit sector. And we're about to get all that, and then to start trying to think of some solutions that can at least, either advocacy solutions or financial solutions if we can afford them, to move towards helping increase the wages of those very important workers who are doing critical work and who are getting paid so little. It's really shameful the way that we have handled that situation. So we've got some things in place, but I think that ballot measure is going to be very important. People organize together can improve their wages.
Marcus Samantel, City Club member. I was very pleased to hear you speak about IDAs, individual development accounts. I serve on the advisory council, state advisory board for Jobs Plus welfare reform here in Oregon. And we have just started to look at IDAs. In fact, many on our council didn't know what they were. And I did find out that you are doing something here. Would you, how does someone qualify to start an IDA? And number two, how are you marketing? How can we help you market this program?
There's a group called, an association called PRIDA, I forget what it stands for. It's about 8 nonprofit agencies that are setting up IDA setups. Human Solutions is who you should talk to first, though. They can tell you how to get in contact with the people that are organized this, and they've been actually creating the infrastructure to do it. The Enterprise Foundation is developing the marketing materials, and I've said that I'm willing to go on the road and help sell this. So keep in contact with me, and as soon as that material is available, which will be the next few weeks, I think, I can get you the material, and then you can help market to that group too. Great.
Kurt Wavering, City Club. Hi, Bev.
Hi, Kurt.
I want to ask you a question about children. Jay Bloom didn't, so I'll ask you a question about children. A lot of attention on schools, juvenile delinquency among older children, but I know you're aware of the issues and the opportunities around very young children during the first years of life, and I'd like to hear some of your ideas and thoughts about what can be done by the county and others during the first few years of life to establish a good platform for children.
Right, this is really critical. I think one of the things that's become really clear to me and many people in this field is how important that early development period is. They say that the first 33 months are critical for brain development. And so we need to provide parenting education and social supports for families to make sure the kids get the stimulation and help they need. We have a task force that Commissioner Lisa Nato is heading up, looking at giving us proposals around early childhood education. Depending on a variety of factors, we may actually include that on our public safety levy, depending on various things. But if we do, we would be saying, which is true, that this is one of the best ways we could reduce crime, is to make sure kids get a good start in life. So we are aware, very aware of this, and the board is completely supportive of looking at this early interventions. And some of it does have to do, it goes back to Sizemore. I mean, we need to have some money to put into this. This is not, it's not totally free.
Greg McPherson, City Club member. Bev, one of the major functions of Multnomah County government is to serve as jailer for local government. At the same time that one of the major trends we've seen in America in recent years has been the expansion of prison populations to the point where we jail a larger percentage of our citizens than any other developed country. And Oregon has been a part of that trend. Do you see that the politics of the 21st century might reverse that trend, and are there actions that you will take within the county to see that happens?
I sure hope so. I think it's a very bad trend, obviously. Some hopeful signs are that, first of all, the crime rate is going down, so there isn't as much sort of energy around the issue, so people might be able to look at it with clear eyes. Another example is the Citizens Crime Commission, which is a branch of the Chamber of Commerce, which started out very much being the main force to advocate for more jails, has now an early childhood education committee, and they are recommending to us that we fund, they're going to be coming to us recommend that we fund some early childhood kinds of programs, because I think more and more people, as they begin to understand the public safety system, understand it's the front end that matters. We've done some things like our school attendance initiative, which is through our juvenile community justice department. Elise Clausen is here as head of the department. And that is, we believe that if kids stay in school, we'll reduce crime, which then, and juvenile crime is the biggest predictor of adult crime. So we're trying to invest at the front end. So that's sort of what we're trying to do, is balance the jail money with front end money so that we have a balanced system. I think we have a better balanced system in the county than we have at the state, for instance, where ballot measure 11 has driven the big increase in the prison population and building. But I think that it's incumbent upon all of us not to buy into the rhetoric that the only solution to responding to crime is jail. We have to turn the faucet on crime, and it's a continuum. We have to have the whole continuum in place. And I think we've done a lot to create that continuum. I could go in great detail, actually, on that, but I think I won't.
Hadn't realized it would be, but it's a follow-on question. One of the biggest drivers of the increase in prison populations has been this insane war on drugs. It has skewed all kinds of governmental values and budgets in ways that I don't think anybody ever envisioned. What can local government do to change the way we go about handling the problem of drug use and turning it from a criminal matter into a public health matter, where I believe it really should lie?
That's something we're very interested in, and Commissioner Kelly's here has been heading up a effort on that in that regard. Part of it is public education, and actually Sharon and I were at a meeting this week that I think was very powerful, and I'm hoping these folks will meet with more people, and I'm sure they will. It's called the Recovery Addictions Project, and it is people who are recovering from the addictions of alcohol and drugs. And they have formed a political organization, essentially, to advocate for their interests. And one of the things that they advocated with us for, and which we funded, which is very successful, is a mentor program. So that when someone is in detox at Hooper Detox, someone comes to the door, takes them to housing. We need more alcohol and drug-free housing, to put them there, and then stick with them to get them to go to their programs, whatever treatment programs they have, get them clothes, make sure they have food. And the stories we heard from these people who are recovering addicts were the most powerful stories I have heard in a very long time. People who said, I've been in recovery for 5 months, and everyone burst into applause. 5 years. And they are people who are reclaiming their lives, and what's so neat about it is they're not only reclaiming their lives personally, they are taking responsibility for trying to change the public arena in this area. And there were 200 people at this meeting because they're associated with a large organization of churches and other organizations that are supporting them. So I think supporting groups like RAP is going to be very important to get the word out from people who have actually experienced this addiction, have recovered from it, and are productive members of community. People need to see those people, and they're making themselves visible, and it's very exciting.
John Leeper, City Club member. Chair Stein, you have spoken about opening up the schools for after-hours program 3 to 6. Does that program include all 3 levels of schools, elementary, middle, and high school? That, I think, if it does, is something that you should incorporate in any of your remarks that you give in the future.
Okay. Right now we have Sun schools in middle schools and attached to some grade schools. And that's been the extent of what we've done so far. I think it would be great to have Sun schools in every school, but the middle school time is such an important transition period for kids, we feel that that was the best place to start. If we're going to do Sun scales at the scale that Sun schools at the scale that I think is necessary, we are going to have to incorporate it as part of the education budget. This is going to take some time for people to get, but schools open for the whole day and in the evenings and in the weekends and during the summers is going to cost money, and it's going to have to be part of the education budget at the state level. Believe me, trying to patch together the money to do these schools is taking a lot of work, and it's not the way to do it, but it's the way to get it started. So that's a challenge for us in the future. Oh, thanks. I see the hook is coming.
Bev, thanks very much for your remarks, and we particularly appreciate you giving enough time at the end so we can ask a lot of questions which you heard here today. We're adjourned. Thank you.